So in this segment, we're going to be talking about the NHS pay rise for the 4% pay rise for Scottish NHS workers. And so, look, it's not what the Royal College of Nursing wanted. They wanted a 12% pay rise. But 4% is much more than 1%, especially because the NHS workers in Scotland were given health and social care workers were given a £500 thank you from the Scottish government. So that goes a long way. So a lot of people are claiming this is for the election and electioneering. I don't believe that is wholly the case. Obviously, that plays into it to an extent. But at the same time, I think that they're doing a good thing here, and they are showing up the Conservative government in Westminster. They're showing them up pretty badly, to be honest, and we'll be talking about that towards the second half of the video. So NHS staff in Scotland are to be offered a pay rise of at least 4%, the Scottish Government has confirmed. Nurses, paramedics, and domestic staff, so I think that includes like cleaners and porters, are among those who could receive the boost to their salaries. Health Secretary Jean Freeman said the average pay of a frontline NHS nurse would rise by over £1,200 a year, which is, a significant amount. You can do a fair amount with that sort of money. She said the offer, which does not apply to doctors, recognised the service and dedication of staff during the pandemic. I think they should be giving some sort of pay rise to doctors as well. But, I suppose they want to focus more on, the lower paid, workers within the NHS. The settlement will be backdated to the 1st of December in recognition of an exceptional year. So, again, backdating the payments also a very good sign that they're not just going to be paid more from when this agreement is signed, but from last year, which is nice. It follows the £500 payment. Earlier this month, Boris Johnson defended plans to give some NHS staff in England a 1% pay rise, saying the country's broke. These guys are heroes, or these people are heroes, and but we can't pay you. So you're just gonna have to pay your bills in claps. Just ridiculous. Ms. Freeman described the Scottish Government's offer as the biggest single pay uplift since devolution, and it does kind of hint that Scotland can run things better over there. That's the way I see it. So the NHS Agenda for Change, the AFC, is the current grading and pay system for NHS staff. It does not include doctors, dentists, executives, and senior managers, who are probably under a different pay system because they are paid significantly more. So we've got some analysis here from Douglas Fraser. Across cycles of economic growth and contraction, public sector pay remains stable, whilst private sector pay is more volatile. When times are good, typically people in the private sector get paid more, but normally that money goes to the higher end of people. So executives and stuff like that, CEOs, etc. And when times are bad within the private sector, you get layoffs. In the public sector, generally it's not as bad. It just depends on what direction the government wants to go in, rather than according to how damaged the economy is. So NHS staff have political support, so it makes sense ahead of an election. However, with a balanced budget, this is the how you gonna pay for it kind of thing here. With a balanced budget required, a pound spent on pay cannot be spent on others, depending on your philosophy on how government spending should work. If you speak to someone who does Keynesian economics or MMT, they may disagree with you here. But a pound spent here is money that could be spent elsewhere on the COVID battlefront. For instance, care home workers, those in the country. I mean, it doesn't have to be either or. He's making it seem like you have to pick one or the other, which simply isn't the case. Those in the voluntary sector, welfare benefits for unpaid carers. A further consideration in NHS pay is that demand for scarce skills is on the rise. Without easy access to EU labour, I wouldn't put it like that, because it does fall into the trap of just saying these are just EU migrant workers, etc. EU staff. I'd put that in instead, because the phrase EU labour has been used as a battering stick against EU workers, which is grossly unfair and fairly xenophobic. So without access to EU staff because of Brexit, and the fact that they're going to need a visa, etc., means that we do have to recruit more people here, which is time consuming and more expensive. Many GPs working part-time and with doctors' retirements, many GPs working part-time, and loss of medical expertise overseas, this is one sign of the measure that the NHS has to take to ensure it recruits and retains staff it needs, because people, NHS workers are threatening to leave. Especially nurses are threatening to leave because of the lack of a pay rise, and also I'd assume that the lack of staff there as well to actually help them, because most nurses start their shifts understaffed because of the government. Anyways, she added that it would benefit 154,000 staff, and including domestic staff, porters, and healthcare support workers. This group, which she described as the backbone of our service, would see a pay rise of more than £1,000, the equivalent of between 4 and 5.4%. The highest pay rise will be 800. What's it say? Those on the highest salaries will receive an £800 pay rise, which, depending on how much you earn, may not seem like a lot. We've got more analysis here from another BBC correspondent. This is not just a bumper pay offer for many NHS workers in Scotland. It's a powerful negotiating tool for health unions trying to prize more cash from the UK government, and that's a very good point there, because if it's the case that the government are saying we only have 1% for healthcare workers in England and Wales, why? It is a powerful negotiating tool for NHS England, healthcare workers in England, because they can say that why is it that workers in Scotland can get a 4% pay rise but we can't? The money is there clearly. You do not want to spend it on us, especially when they talk about if you bring in the amounts wasted on test and trace and stuff like that. So the SNP has given a massive push to help, I guess, healthcare workers within England, maybe without even realising it. That contrast will probably... he says, it's hard to imagine nurses and other healthcare staff in England settling for a 1% pay rise when their colleagues in Scotland are receiving a 4% pay rise, which, again, is a massive kick in the teeth for healthcare workers in England and Wales, that healthcare workers in Scotland are going to get more money than them. I can imagine how frustrating that would be. The contrast will presumably not go unnoticed by the independent pay review panel in England with its recommendations due in May. But the thing is, this pay review panel can say we recommend a 4 or 6% pay increase, but the government can just say, all right, okay, bye. That's all that, it's a recommendation. It's nothing more than that. The only thing the government are doing here is buying themselves more time, but by delaying the decision further, it makes the U-turn look far more aggressive. Colin Pullman, the Royal College of Nursing Scotland senior officer, said the timescale for negotiations was tight, and as a result of the forthcoming election, but we now have received an offer for a 1-year pay deal. The Royal College of Nursing, I don't know if they have a separate body in England. They must do, based on this. But they want a 12% pay rise, so that's going to be interesting to see what happens there. Willie Duffy, Unison regional manager, I assume that's a trade union. He said there will be a view that it's not enough, but we managed through the negotiations to get extra money into the pay envelope. So it looks like the union is treating this as a win. So that's quite interesting. Stark difference. So this is the same person here, I think, saying that it shows the stark difference between the two governments and their attitude towards trying to deal with health service workers, because it really does that. The Scottish government are offering a 5% increase, and the British government is only offering a 1% increase, which, if inflation is at around 1%, in real terms, that's nothing. Because when you factor in pay increases, you have to factor in inflation as well. How much extra have living costs gone up? So yeah, all of Scotland's main opposition parties have made the NHS a central part of their appeals. But the thing is, right, this is if the government's smart, if the not the SNP but the Labour, Scottish Labour, if they said to the MSPs in the Conservative Party and said, look, do you support this 4% rise for NHS workers? If they say no, they look stupid and look like they're against the NHS. If they say yes, then you can use that for, NHS workers in England and say, look, how come MSPs are saying that there's money for this 4% increase, but the British government are saying there's not this 4% increase, if you see what I'm saying. So let's hope Scottish Labour are intelligent and they work with Keir Starmer and actually do something with that. Labour in Scotland's talking about the NHS pay offer being welcome, but it did not consider social care workers, whom she called the unsung heroes of the pandemic. Miss Bailey said Scottish Labour was committed to a wage rise to £15 an hour for social care workforce, and an immediate £12 increase, £12 an hour increase, which is good stuff. I support that. Scottish Greens have pledged for a properly funded, public-owned NHS Scotland. Okay, and while the Scottish Liberal Democrats are promising a decent pay rise, so they don't have a number, which is just hilarious. So funny. Oh yeah, we'll give you guys a decent pay rise. Like, how much? Is like, I don't know yet. Ridiculous. So we go to the Boris Johnson bit where he's under pressure. So Boris Johnson has, this is from the FT, Boris Johnson has suggested that NHS nurses in England could receive a further pay increase after coming under renewed pressure following a Scottish government decision to offer most NHS staff a 4% pay rise. So what we can see from this is that Boris Johnson is going to be under pressure from this, especially since the pay increase is going to be backdated as well. So it's going to kick in not just straight away, but it's going to account for some of the months that have gone by. In England, the government has recommended a rise of just 1% for staff, but responding to renewed criticism, Johnson hinted that the government was considering a higher pay rise for nurses. We've asked the public sector pay review body to look at what could be done for nurses in particular, exceptionally, and I think that's right, he said, but like, what, bruv, you could do this. You don't need the pay review body to do this. You can do this yourself. Like, they're going to give you a recommendation. Like, this is just so stupid. Anyone who falls for this is dumb. I think what nurses have done what nurses have done is incredible, and I personally am the beneficiary of their life-saving efforts. So why are you just offering them a 1% pay rise? What a joker! Like, honestly, he's like, oh, thanks for saving my life. Here's a penny. The sentiment was echoed by Children's Minister Vicky Ford, who earlier on Thursday said the government's focus was on those lowest paid within healthcare. Well, do something then. You've had 10 years to do something. Do something. Why? We do want to make sure that even at this stage, at this very challenging time for the whole economy, so that's what they're saying. We're broke. We can't afford it. Go away. There is a pay rise for the NHS, but look, we'll look at nurse pay in a second. And this is the most frustrating bit of this article, where she lies again. She says, for example, the salary of new staffing nurses, that's band 5, has gone up by 12% in recent years. The thing is, this article did not actually talk about the fact that this is real terms. They've had a pay cut. So if we look at this article here, this is the lowest paid one. I think band 5. So if you look at, they talk about this pay rise 12%, but in real terms they've had a pay cut over the last 10 years. So, what is she talking about here? Where's it gone? For example, the salary of new staffing nurse has gone up by 12% in recent years. In real terms, it hasn't. In real terms, they still get paid less than they did in 2010. So she's an absolute fraud. With Vicky Ford, the fraud. Vicky the fraud. Honestly. And so what can we gather from this article, these articles, which is the Scottish Government, for whatever reason you believe, has increased the pay for NHS, lower paid staff in the NHS by 4%. Boris Johnson only wanted to give them 1%. This puts Boris Johnson in a very awkward position here, because if he does not offer at least what the Scottish Government are offering, it makes it look like the British government care far less about NHS staff than the SNP do, which is absolutely the case, but they don't want people to realise that yet. It's going to be tough because people... working class people won't get the pay rises and stuff, and they'll look at, nurse salaries and say, why are they getting a pay rise? But if we actually look here, they haven't actually had an above inflation pay rise for a long time. Even if you look at the average basic pay, you can see that it's well below, it's fallen way below what it was in 2010 in real terms. So point being is that they do deserve a pay rise. They haven't received an above inflation pay rise since probably pre-2010, to be honest with you. So, what does this tell us? It tells us that the government have done a crappy job and are just spinning spinning the fact that, that NHS staff have received a pay rise, when in reality, this is a real terms pay cut. And I do want to see what Boris Johnson's next move is here, because we know what the scale is like. We know that he's only offering 1%. The Royal College of Nursing wants 12%. Keir Starmer has no idea how much he wants to offer, for NHS staff. All he wants it to go to is a vote. That's it. That's all we know. So look, what can we gather from this is the fact that the SNP, through doing the right thing, or a good thing, have put Boris Johnson in an incredibly awkward position. And I don't know if Nicola Sturgeon knew she was doing that off the jump, or if this is just a side benefit of it. I couldn't tell you for sure. But, all that's left to say is let me know what you think in the comments below. Like, comment, share, subscribe, and hopefully I'll see you in the next one.